Welcome back to Desk Careers. I am so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Dr. Aman Sohal, who is the Consultant Paediatric Neurologist, co-founder and clinical director of Neuropedia Children's Neuroscience Center. Welcome, Dr. Sohal.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for having me on board for this lovely talk, and I really look forward to it.
I'm so excited to bring you here and talk to our community members, our students, and our community global members around the world. In talking to medical practitioners, what I always find the most interesting is there are many different pathways to medicine, many different purposes behind the why we want to go into medicine. And so before we get into the details of your current role and the different hats that you wear in your current role, I thought we could go down memory lane and take you back to those younger years when the dream of becoming a doctor existed. When did you know that this was what you wanted to do?
Okay, that's a very tricky question, and it was a long time ago. I started my medical school way back in 1996. I think the passion to become a doctor or to be something in the medical field started when I was in my GCSEs. Way back, it used to be called 10th class or grade 10 for us, where I did my schooling from. Where I used to live, there used to be a doctor there. And I used to see this lady doctor function with children. And that always fascinated me, how she was able to help the children, my fellows, my peers in my school. And she used to be a school doctor for us. I think that's where the interest really began. And from there on, I thought this is something I could do as a career. So that was a long time ago.
Absolutely inspiring. And did you have any medical role models in the family? Were you surrounded by doctors, or was this just a Dr. Sohal?
Okay. You'd be surprised that I am the first one, a medical professional in my whole family so far. Since I became a doctor, then there are lots of other kids who were inspired and they took up the medical profession. But I was the first one in the family to go and become a medical doctor. But again, you don't have to have a family member who is in the medical profession. And it's not just being a medical doctor. There can be other people in the family who would be doing things a little bit differently and being more empathetic towards people. That inspires and instills confidence in you that it's something you can do to help people. And that's where it all took off for me, is to help people. And how can I do that?
And that's exactly what it's all about. When you put the studying to the side and the years of education and wearing the role of medical doctor, it really all does come down to helping people. And I know that young people on the journey towards their aspired careers in the medical industry, particularly when they're thinking of going down the medical path of becoming a medical doctor, I think somewhere along the way they forget that it's all about helping people. And when they're completing their applications or sitting and preparing for their interviews, they're more concerned about the academic journey, and they don't pay enough attention to the story behind it. What kind of tips can you offer an aspiring medic who may be preparing for an upcoming medical interview?
It can be very daunting time for students when they're applying for universities, particularly if a young person wants to become a doctor, for example. My first advice to all aspiring kids who want to become a medical doctor is that, do you really want to do it? That's the first question they have to answer. Because it's not it's a very long, arduous task, a long process which you have to go through. So you have to believe that this is something which I want to do for the rest of my life. And the first thing they have to answer to themselves is that, do they have the qualities to be somebody who wants to help mankind or humanity? Do they have empathetic drive in them to understand people who are in sort of physical grief or some sort of medical problem, and they're willing to help them? If the answer to that question is that yes, we can do it for the rest of our lives, then they should go for for this particular profession. The other tips, which as you mentioned, is go and meet somebody who is in the profession. So I do have lots of young people coming to do some sort of internship or summer internship to just get a flavor of what is being like being a doctor in your daily life. And if after a few weeks, this is something which appeals to you, that yes, we can do it this and day in, day out, then that's something they should start thinking about and apply about.
I completely agree. I think sometimes when professionals meet young people, you have two camps. You have camp one that says, don't really tell them what it's like. They're too young. Just, don't really tell them. And then you have the other camp that says, no, if they want to do this, they have to know what it's really like. And they almost dissuade by telling all these really daunting stories. Where do you lie? Are you on either of those camps, or are you kind of in between and think, no, we need to do a bit of both?
Okay, so I'll take you back to my personal experience. When I took up medical profession, I had no clue how difficult this is going to be. Because, as I said, I just saw somebody helping people, and I thought, this seems a good profession to help people. I had no idea how difficult this is going to be. I would not change any of that, by the way. If I had to do it all over again, I would still do it this profession, because I don't think I can do anything else. But I think now I have realized that young people need to know, if somebody wants to go into this profession, they have to at least understand that this is not something which is going to finish once you finish your university. Most universities have a 3-year programs or 4-year programs, and you come out and you start your profession. Medical profession is not like that. Your program is for 5.5 years before you become an MBBS, a doctor. So you have to understand what you're getting into. And many people or many kids who come to see me in internship, actually, when they find out that this is what they want to do, they actually become more geared up to do that. And they're more happy that somebody told them this is what it takes to become an MBBS doctor. So I am in that camp now when I like to tell young people that this is what you're getting into. Be prepared for that.
So what are they getting into? Tell us, Dr. Sohal.
They're getting into a lot of hard work. It is not an easy profession. In fact, I was reading somewhere on social media a way back that the MBBS the degree is one of the hardest degrees as opposed to all other degrees for undergraduates. So there is no two ways that this is a difficult profession to take up. But there's also the most rewarding profession when it comes to helping people. So when a patient comes to you and says, thank you for helping me or making me better, I don't think there is any other profession which can take this particular kind of reward from the people you're helping. So I think there's hard work on one end, but the rewards are way higher when it comes to human communication and human contact.
Through the pandemic, the medical practitioners have not only had to deal with their regular patients, but they also had to deal with this completely unprecedented, and I think everybody was unprepared, but you were all right at the forefront. How did that evolve your profession, and what do young people need to prepare themselves for that prior to the pandemic may never have even been a conversation?
Yeah, so as you also know, and the whole world knows, that we've been in a difficult situation in the past year, just over a year and a half, 2 years now. And it has been a difficult time for medical profession as well. We had never dealt something like this before. There had been some, small kind of endemics in different countries, but at this scale, we'd never seen anything like that before. And as you rightly said, that medical profession, including doctors, nurses, healthcare assistants, ambulance drivers, so on and so forth, we all have been in the forefront of what has been going on. I think one thing which is stuck out of all this is the resilience of the medical professionals, the kind of zest to help people. And it all boils down to the same thing which I started as, that is it in for you? Is that something in you that you want to help people? And if you have that, then you will stand up against all the adversities, and you will stand up for humanity and mankind. And that's what all the medical professionals, not just doctors, but all allied health professionals have stood up for. For people who are aspiring to be in this profession, be it medicine, nursing staff, and allied health professionals, you have to understand that the world is changing, and this might come up again, and this might stay or linger on in future as well. But if we stick together as a profession, and we help each other, and with the support of our families, we can come through with all this. Yes, we have our days when we come back home and think we had a busy day, or we had a difficult day, or we lost a patient somewhere. But then again, when we look at the bigger picture, I think we have helped many more people than people we have lost. So just standing up together as humanity is something which we look forward to, and we really look forward to every day when we go to work. How can we help somebody? And I think that is the key take-home message for everyone.
It's been so inspiring to watch the medical practitioners all over the world through this pandemic. I think what struck it for me the most was that as professionals, you had to choose the profession, although your heart was probably at home with family members and the concern. One of the most selfless acts I've seen through the pandemic is what our medical practitioners around the world have done. Do you believe that this is a quality, a strength that you've seen that young doctors need to prepare themselves for, that maybe before wasn't as prominent?
Yeah, so I'd agree with you on that before the pandemic, we were not prepared for something like this. Like you mentioned, that for medical professionals and their families also, it has been difficult. So for example, in my case, I'm not I was not in frontline like my intensive care staff, for example. So my colleagues who were in ICU, they were the real frontlines, or the ones who work in an emergency were the real frontlines, where the patient comes in first. But even for us, for example, who see patients when they are admitted, we would go back home. And before we go back home, we had to kind of change everything before we went back home, because we were scared, or we were worried that our dear ones could get infected with this virus. So it has had an impact on us as medical professionals and our families. I think the students who want to, take up this profession, they should understand that this may happen, and you have to be mentally prepared for that. And then there is support. So, for example, the medical students who are in UK from where I am, for example, and they were in final year or internship, they were asked to do ward rounds because people wanted help, or the medical profession wanted help. There is support from them for them. So there's a sort of training which goes in before you are kind of made to do a kind of clinical work. So they will get support, they will get training, and they'll be trained for all this. But until you actually are in frontline, the real training starts at that point when you're there. So no matter how hard you've trained, but when you're there, yes, your training comes into practice. But once you do it yourself, that's a whole different level.
So true. So true. Okay, let's go back to your journey. You don't just work as a medical practitioner, you work with children. When did you know that was your specialization?
Okay, so when I finished my MBBS, I did not think that pediatrics or pediatric neurology is something I would do. Because, yes, I had done a little bit of internship in pediatrics, but that was not something which I had decided upon, so to speak. But I'll give you an interesting story what happened. I was a junior doctor. I was just in my first year when I'd finished my MBBS. And I was in the UK. I was doing a ward round with one of my consultants, and I had a pediatric posting for like a month. And I saw a little kid in the corner playing PlayStation. So this is a cool job where you can actually see the kids playing PlayStation. So I went over to him, and he was enjoying his game, and we did the ward round while he was playing his game. What inspired me was my consultant. He was doing his job. He was examining the child. He was doing everything without disturbing this kid playing his PlayStation. I thought, this is amazing that you can do your job and help somebody and let them have fun along the way. It was not a ballpark bog standard examination which we do in adults. It was adapting yourself as a doctor and helping a person, young person, without even bothering them. And that's when I decided this is something really fun and I would like to do that. And hence the reason I took up pediatrics as a profession.
What would you say have been the highlights of your career so far?
Do you know what, Maria? Every day there is something new which happens in our careers. In our profession, we come across many children with problems, many parents and families who are burdened with their children's health. So I think every day brings something new. But I suppose if you ask me a highlight of my career, I would point out two main highlights. One is that when I stepped up to become a pediatric neurologist, which is a subspecialty of pediatrics, and there are only a handful of us in wherever we work. For example, in UAE, I think we're only 10 of us. In UK, I think we're only 60 or 70 odd of us. So that was one of the highlights that when I took up this particular profession. The second highlight is that since I've been in UAE, we have managed to set up a clinic or a neuroscience center, which you mentioned, Neuropedia Children's Neuroscience Center. So Neuropedia is the only comprehensive pediatric neurology center in the whole of UAE, GCC, and we get patients all the way down from Africa, South Africa, Tanzania. I had a patient yesterday from Tanzania, and different parts of the world. So I think that was another major step in my kind of profession to make something like this, because there's a dearth of something which is to do with pediatric neurology around the world.
So not only did you decide to be a medical doctor, you decided to create such an impact that you would help young people in the Middle East where there wasn't a center such as Neuropedia. How does it feel to now sit and watch this incredible center grow and evolve?
Yeah, it's been a journey. We've been there for now three and a half years now. And it has been a roller coaster ride to begin with. But, as the time has passed, by the grace of God and the help of our colleagues, help of the community and friends, we have managed to reach where we are now. And it's not just for me. I think every single member of the team who is with us are proud of what they do. And we have a team of physiotherapists. We have a team of occupational therapists, speech therapists, dietitian, psychologists. So we have a whole gamut of people who work along with us. And I think each one of us can be proud of what we have done. Before we started something like this, there wasn't anything available which would bring every profession, all of these allied professions under one roof. So I think that's a super proud moment for each one of us that we have helped a community in some way to bring all these professions under one roof.
At some point in your career, you're going to be looking back at a younger doctor just like you. What do you hope that they will remember to keep the movement of neuroscience, neurology, and pediatrics going?
Again, it boils down to the individual experiences. I've had young people come to me saying that we were not sure what we wanted to do. Yes, we wanted to do kind of medicine. I've got some doctors who are MBBS and they come to us and say, we have no idea what specialty we want to do. I mean, yes, we've become a doctor, whether we should become GP or we should become pediatrics or this and that. My advice to them is that you cannot decide in a day what you want to be. You've got to have a flavor of everything. And that's, again, a training program which we have wherever the kids or young people go to. So they will have a flavor of pediatrics, they have a flavor of neurology, adult medicine, so on and so forth. Give yourself a year in all these kind of specialties and then follow your heart. Yeah, when you follow your heart, you will reach there. You will get to a place where you want to be. Because I always believe there's an inner voice which tells you what to do. So when you do all these departments, when you go through them, your inner voice will direct you to that profession. And believe me, it has worked every single time for everybody when they reach that.
Very inspiring. I know that you believe that young people should be clear in their mind about what they want to do. And you mentioned that, when the doubts are creeping in, then pay attention. So when those doubts creep in, how do we know when it's a normal feeling to have a doubt or how do we know when it might be a red flag?
Okay, so we all have doubts. We all, as individuals, as young people or adults, we have doubts. I still have doubts in my head, whether I'm doing the right thing for the child or not, whether I'm doing the right kind of treatment for the child or not. But the point is that when you have doubt, you go and ask for help. And that's what I do. When I'm not clear what I'm doing, I go and speak to my colleague that, could you help me? This is what I'm doing. Am I doing the right thing? For young people, it's the same thing. Having doubt is not a bad thing because you are self-aware of what you want to do. Doubt actually helps you with self-awareness. You want to question yourself. And it's always a good thing to question yourself, because if you're questioning yourself, that means more often than not, you're doing the right thing. And if you have doubts, you go and ask somebody. So if you have doubts in, for example, medical profession, you go and speak to somebody who you look up to. Lots of young people come to me that, do you think medicine or pediatrics is the right thing for me? And I tell them, come sit with me for a few weeks, sit with this doctor for a few weeks. If this appeals to you, then go for it. This is the right thing for you. So if you're in doubt, ask for help.
Always, always, always. Okay, Dr. Sohal, I'm going to start to wrap this up. I'm very conscious of your time and being here. You wear different hats. You're a doctor, you're a co-founder, and you're a clinical director. I always ask this question to guests who wear multiple hats. How do you find the balancing act between the three different hats?
Yeah, it's a challenge, to put it mildly, because when I'm a professional clinician, I'm doing my job, I'm doing my ward rounds, I'm doing my clinic. When I am a clinical director, then I have to look at the management part of things. I have to look how my professional colleagues are functioning, if they need appraisals, if they need to sit with me and discuss their issues. So that's a different kind of whole together. And then as a co-founder, we look at the whole management business strategies for Neuropedia, how to develop Neuropedia in schools, how to kind of progress Neuropedia as an institute. So yes, it's a challenge, but it's exciting as well. One has to understand that when one is thinking about one part of their job, try to just focus on that part and don't let things muddle up. It's easier said than done, but with time, with practice, one can do that. So the key here is to actually focus on what you're doing, and the rest will take care of itself.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. This was such an insightful conversation. I've really, really enjoyed this time with you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on board, Maria. Thank you very much indeed.
Such a pleasure. And that brings us right to the end of another incredible conversation. Today, we were speaking with Dr. Aman Sohal, who is the Consultant Paediatric Neurologist, co-founder and clinical director of Neuropedia Children's Neuroscience Center here in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. I'll see you all at our next Desk Careers Digital Spotlights.